Hi guys, welcome to another live session. I know you guys are really busy because your exams are coming up. I hope this live session helps. We'll be starting in a few minutes. Before we start, I would love to give a background about myself. I'm Saim Fakih. I'm an ACCA member myself. I just want to talk a little bit about my ACCA journey before we start the SBL live session. So I cleared my IPCC initially. After that, I started studying for ACCA and I completed all my ACCA papers eventually. I was initially working for 𝗦𝗽𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍, which is a mid-size CA firm in risk advisory. After completing my ACCA, I went to 𝗕𝗏𝗍𝗍𝗍 in internal audit and risk advisory services. Unfortunately, 𝗕𝗏𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍 shut down, so I had to move. I moved on to BDO, where I was working as a risk consultant, a little bit into fraud evaluation as well. My experience in BDO, when I got into when I moved from an industry to a consultancy, it was a great experience which I had when I was moving from an industry to a consultancy company. Obviously, consultancy pays more, but the amount of working hours you have is much more. But at the same time, you get experience in various industries. In Jet, I was just working in the airlines industry, but in BDO, I was working on various other clients, so that really helps. After that, I shifted into SAP implementation, which is I was basically working on SAP FI and SAP Ariba, where I was implementing IFRS for various clients. A lot of clients who move from normal accounting softwares to SAP accounting softwares. I started, as far as teaching is concerned, I started teaching back in 2017, and teaching just gives me a kick. So I love to teach. SBL is one of my favorite subjects. Okay, I wrote the first ever SBL paper. So first it was P1 and P3, and they combined it and they formed one SBL paper. And at that time it was very difficult. The problem is we didn't have a proper textbook because people were just merging P1 and P3 at that time. But I did get ACCA notes, okay, from the ACCA body itself. Because at that time Kaplan was not producing the exact, even Kaplan and BPP didn't know exactly what to keep in the notes, what to keep in the questions, because there were no there were no questions from the last year or the last attempts. So even they were just trying to figure out something. I was really nervous before the SBL paper because it never had before. But I went in the paper really confidently, and it was a great experience. I scored around 72 marks, so I was pretty happy at that time. The best part of the SBL paper, it was 4 hours. Even though it is 4 hours, I found that 4 hours was a bit less. But I really like the fact that after 3 hours and 15 minutes, most of the people, I think they were giving the FM paper, so they left, and I was still sitting for the paper for the additional 45 minutes. Good experience. SBL was a great experience. I started teaching SBL after that, and the best part about SBL is that it's like a mini MBA exam. Okay, it's very different from your normal ACCA papers. The syllabus itself is that's what MBA colleges cover. And the fact that it is so dynamic, sometimes you don't even know. As you know, it's totally case study based, so you have no idea from which industry that case study will come. Okay, and in the SBL paper, they were right to ask you the basics from paper to from F1 to F9. Correct? They might just ask you. You might have to know a little bit of ratio analysis. You might need to know a little bit about KPIs, or from costing, or from your PM paper. So you don't need to go in depth, but you should know your basics really well. And the more you use those technical terms from the other papers, the examiners really like it. A few other things about the SBL paper is that so as I mentioned before, I know it is 4 hours long, but trust me, 4 hours is not enough. Okay, they literally give you a booklet. Okay, okay, wait, let's get to the basics first. So I'll just talk about what we're going to talk about in today's session, and then we can just break it down step by step. Okay, we'll start with SBL exam strategy, moving on to approaching the final weeks, which are right now, moving on to how many mocks you have to give, and the CBA practice. When you can give your mocks written, or you can do your CBA practice, how many mocks you give, how do you break down the mocks, okay, and how do you evaluate yourself one mock after each other. Okay, the key topics, and then we'll keep a session for the question and answers which you guys have. Okay, so guys, before we start with the first topic, which is exam strategy, we at Zell Education keep uploading videos on our YouTube channel, not only about ACCA but about CPA, about CFA, about CMA, on various basically various courses in accounting and finance. We do start uploading a little bit about fintech as well. Feel free to reach out to us. There's always a number under those videos, and if you guys have any doubts related to whatever we have discussed, please put in the comment section. We will respond immediately. Okay, so moving to the first thing, which is the most important part about SBL, is the exam strategy. Okay, we all know that it's a 100-mark paper. 100-mark paper, 4 hours, one case study. Okay, guys, remember, one case study. It's very different from what you guys, even if you guys have given P-level papers, normally it's broken into 50, 25, 25. But here it's a straight away 100-mark paper. Correct? There's only one case study where they'll talk about one specific company. Okay, I remember giving my paper, so it was about a civil engineering company who was planning to design roads in another country. Okay, so they were doing, suppose they're doing really well in India, but they got a project from let's say a neighboring country like Sri Lanka. Okay, and they wanted to make an entire highway across the in the mountain sections. So it was very important that whether we should take up the first part was whether we should take up this decision of going to another country. What are the political barriers which will be there? What about the currency rate? We have never worked with Sri Lankan people, so even labor was an issue over there. In the paper, you have to interview someone who's going to work under you. So you need to understand, they'll give you 2 profiles. You need to understand that should I select candidate A or should I select candidate B. Once you take up the project, there might be issues. So there might be a board meeting where the board of directors question you that whether you have done your job right or not. You do get an auditor's report. You do get customers' feedback, so you need to make decisions based on that. So all I'm saying is the paper is very dynamic. Okay, and you, no matter, sometimes and the industry which they're going to select, like I got civil engineering, right? The paper after that was a company which is related to railways. So the industry is never specific. Okay, you have to be prepared for anything which they're going to throw at you in the paper itself. Okay, now the main thing which we need to break down is, people keep asking us one thing, that okay, the paper is 100 marks, but you must have heard about this, that you'll get 20 marks for professional marks. Okay, and people keep asking, what are these professional marks? You know, that shouldn't be 100 marks straight away paper. No, the professional marks are very important, and they're rightly important. See guys, you need to understand that you guys, the moment you'll complete SBL, probably if you'll have max 3 papers after that, or 2 papers, or 1 paper after that, or SBL might be your last paper, you guys are going to start working very soon. Okay, and these professional marks, trust me, they're going to help you in your work life. Okay, everything, all 5 of them are going to help you in your work life. So it's very crucial that they've kept those 20 marks, and and you guys just remember that these 20 marks can be so crucial that you can probably fail because these 20 marks, or pass because these 20 marks. See, I've written everything perfectly, but I've not stuck to my I've not gone for my professional marks. I might end up getting a 48 or a 45. I might just miss out passing the paper by 2 marks or by 5 marks, and then it hurts, you know, because you have studied so hard, you got the case study right, you did write the answers properly, but you just didn't write in the specific manner in which they wanted you to write, and because of that you lose out your marks. Okay, okay, now as I've listed all 5 of I'll call them verbs, okay, which they ask you in the question, and they'll tell you that they'll ask you a question and they'll say that you'll get another 3 marks if you use evaluation, or you'll get another 2 marks if you use commercial acumen. They literally tell you how many marks will be there for the professional marks. Guys, so the understanding the verb is crucial, okay, because when the examiner is asking you for something specific, okay, if he tells you evaluate, in basic terms, evaluate basically means advantages, disadvantages, and if you just write the advantages, for instance, okay, the examiner will think that you have not understood the question only. Okay, just remember one thing: you have to give the examiner what he has asked for. If you're going to cross what he's going to ask for, then he might just think that, oh, this guy's not understood the question also. The student has not understood the question he's written, and you might write 4 pages, okay, but your partner might just have written 1 page, but he stuck to the point. He gives the examiner what he wanted exactly, and he'll get better marks. Okay, guys, remember, it's not compulsory to take a supplement in the paper. Okay, you might be on point, you might be specifying the exact points which the examiner wants in a brief way also sometimes, and you might not need a supplement, and then you might still do better than someone else. So it doesn't matter the number of words which you have written, the number of Excel sheets you have filled. The only thing which matters is quality, not quantity in SBL. Okay, so let's just break down each and every professional skill marks which you can get, the verbs basically, and let's start with evaluation. Okay, so what exactly is evaluation? As I just mentioned, so what I'll do is I'll explain the verb and I'll give you all an example so you all can relate to it. Okay, because if I'm just explaining the verb, it gets a bit difficult. So I'll try to give you an example which might come in the exam. Okay, let's start with evaluation. As I mentioned, evaluation is basically advantages and disadvantages. Evaluation, I can break it down to 3 parts: assessing, estimating, and appraising. Okay, when I'm talking about assessing, you assess and using professional judgment. If there's a problem scenario, correct, you have to assess it. It is so guys, let's start with the example, then I'll get to assessing, estimating, appraising. Let's say, okay, brilliant example. I'm an IT company, I'm Infosys. Okay, because of COVID, I have started work from home for the last 2 years. Now, since COVID, the number of cases have started dropping, so I might think that should I get back to offices? Okay, I need to understand the advantages and the disadvantages. Okay, when I'm talking about advantages, I have to talk about the financial advantages and the non-financial advantages also, right? If they have to get back to work, if they have to go back to offices, obviously they have to pay office rent, which is huge. They have to pay electricity, they have to pay for Wi-Fi, they have to pay for canteen costs, they have to lease out places. On the other hand, if they are working from home, okay, probably the disadvantages are we're missing out on culture. Okay, it's very important when you're working in a team that you should work in one conference room, or you all should work as a group. Okay, meeting your manager, meeting your partner, even meeting clients. Correct. I know Zoom is brilliant, but sometimes you need to meet your clients, so you need to go out there. So obviously, when I'm talking about Infosys, so suppose Infosys is a part of your case study in your SBL exam, it is very crucial for you. And when they say evaluate the current situation, should Infosys continue working from home, or should they probably look at getting back to the offices? So you will have to list down the advantages, list down the disadvantages, or you can call them benefits and disadvantages, and then in the end the examiner wants a conclusion. Okay, you have to conclude. Remember, if you're giving valid points for your conclusion, you can never be wrong. Another thing in SBL, guys, I might write a different answer, my partner might write a different answer, but in the end of the day, we both might be right because we are giving valid points. If you're just saying that, okay, I conclude by saying that Infosys should continue work from home, but I'm not giving a valid reason behind it, okay, it's of no use. So make sure you conclude after enlisting the advantage and disadvantage. Conclude by saying something specific which you feel is right. Okay, and give valid points after that. A small conclusion will do of let's say 4 to 5 sentences, but please conclude in evaluation. Okay, so that's what assessing and estimating. Another example which you generally give is, since you must have given your F9 paper, which is FM. So inside the SBL paper, there might be a small capital budgeting sum also, like should Tesla move his offices from America to India? Okay, that's another decision they have to make. Correct. In that, there might be financial costs which you have to discuss, the non-financial part, the governments which they'll talk about. So in the SBL paper, they might even talk about the governments. Okay, they might say that you're moving from country A to country B. Country B, there's a current political party which is ruling the country, but in the next 3 years there might be elections and they might lose out, and that might be a disadvantage to us. So we need to understand those aspects as well. The non-financial aspects are very crucial in SBL. That's why it's strategic business leader, right? It's not a not an FM paper or an IFRS paper where numbers is everything. We do consider the non-financial parts. Moving on to the second one, guys, which is commercial acumen. Okay, commercial acumen basically means making commercially sound decisions. Okay, you have to make commercially sound decisions. And I remember in the railway, in the paper after mine, there was some on railways. Okay, and they had asked that how do we stop people from people who are traveling without tickets. You know, a lot of people, even in India, a lot of people traveling without tickets in the metro system especially. So how do we stop that from happening? You know, should we? And they'd given a full, they'd given 2 scenarios, where one was that there was a ticket collector. So they were suggesting that we should probably add a few more ticket collectors. Okay, and they were thinking about a ratio that for these many passengers, at least 1 ticket collector should be there. And the second one was we should probably, you know, in the metro system, unless you show your ID card, you cannot enter itself. Correct? Obviously, there's a obviously people jump over that also, but that's very rare. You know, you can probably keep the bar much higher. So I think in New York, it's only 1 bar, it is 3 bars. So you can't really even jump over it. So those are the 2 things which you have to make, and you have to make a commercially sound decision. Okay, and as again, I'm saying that you have to, obviously in such a scenario, obviously the ticket collector thing is not very the problem with ticket collectors is obviously bribes also, right? They might end up bribing the ticket collectors. We have seen that a lot in India. So obviously you should go ahead with the decision that we should keep something electronic, or should be able to scan it. So right now, if I'm talking about currently, I can ask the same question for COVID vaccination certificates, right? Should I have someone physically checking them, or should I just, and if they're checking it, are they scanning the barcode, or are they just checking a piece of paper and they saying, okay, second vaccination done, we can tick on it. Okay. I went to Delhi airport, on Delhi airport last week, and they didn't scan it. You know, they just showed me, they just asked me for a piece of paper that, or showed it to me on my phone, show me a COVID vaccine certificate, and I showed it to them. And obviously in such a situation, if they're not scanning my barcode, I can obviously show them a fake certificate. Okay, so my picture's not even there on the certificate, so I can probably just show someone else's certificate. So making commercially sound decisions is commercial acumen. Okay, and you will get such situations in the exam where you have to make commercially sound decisions. Moving on to the third one, communication. Guys, this will help you a lot in your corporate life. Okay, you have to write memos, you have to write emails. It's very important to understand who you're communicating to. Okay, if you're communicating to your intern, your language, your tone is so much different compared to when I'm communicating to my director or my reporting manager. Correct? My tone changes, the way I write my email changes. Another thing which, when you're communicating something, is that how much knowledge does the other person know about the current situation. Correct? And depending on, so for example, if I've already explained him the entire situation in the previous email, I don't want to explain the situation again. Correct? I can continue from there. But if I'm writing an email to another team member or another department regarding something which I'm talking about for the first time, obviously it's very important for me to explain the situation, or I might have to ask him for a good time so I can communicate it over a video call or physically meet him. So that is your basis for communication. You have to inform the person, you have to be clear, you have to be precise, and you have to be sensitive at the same time. Correct? You can't obviously be rude also. There's a way of communicating things in the corporate world. This is not you chatting with your cousins, you know, and asking for some random stuff. So communication is essential. The best example for communication, especially related to exams, is they ask you to make a PPT. Okay, so obviously when you're making a PPT in the exam, they're going to ask you to prepare 2 slides. In your first slide, you have to talk about your headers and you have to write your bullet points. In the second slide, you're explaining each and every bullet point in detail. Okay, so you're coming back to, they might ask for communication as well as evaluation. Sometimes they might just give you 6 marks for it. So as I mentioned, the decision whether Infosys should work from home or whether they should come back to offices, they might ask you that, okay, use evaluation to get your decision, and then conclude by writing whatever you want in the PPT. Okay, so it's very important for you to write your bullet points, giving valid explanation in the second slide. So that was communication. Memos, emails, they might ask you to write an email to your board of directors. Sometimes you might have to write an email to an auditor about information. Sometimes you're asking for information, sometimes you're analyzing information sometimes, correct? So communication is key in your SBL exam. They will ask you definitely something about communication. As I mentioned initially also, just see who you're responding to, correct? Whether it's a person who's your subordinate, if he's an intern, if he's a board member, everything changes over there. Okay, and the amount of information the opposite person has. Okay, moving to skepticism. Okay, in the corporate world, you do receive a lot of information from people internally working your company and people externally. Okay, in today's world especially, a lot of the information cannot be trusted, basically, correct? Is it correct? Is it truthful? Is it complete? Correct? There's the one thing which people keep saying is that one thing is lying, correct? The second thing is hiding the truth. When you're selling a product, you're selling a scooter, and he talks about the advantages, and he doesn't talk about the disadvantage, and that might amount to lying also, right? It's not complete information. So if it's not complete information, obviously, all these points raise the skepticism point, that whether the information is skeptical or not, you have to be skeptical while you're looking at information over there. Now, there's some data which when I'm talking about completeness or truthfulness, when I'm talking about, let's say, example of numbers, okay, if this with the financial statement is there, and if it is audited by a third party, okay, the amount of the chances that it is truthful is very high, correct? Because it's prepared by one person, it is checked by someone who's totally external to the company. So I'm not saying it is definitely correct, but the chances of it being correct are more. But let's take an example. I asked my finance manager for an analysis of what's happened right now, okay, in the company, what's happening. So he gives me a financial report which is audited by a third party, let's say KPMG, okay, and at the same time he is giving me reasons why the company is not doing well. For example, he tells me that it's a seasonal product, and in October, November, our product doesn't sell, correct? It is very important for me to cross check that information. Okay, I can trust the financial report part, but trusting his reasons, I need to cross check. Okay, I need to understand that is this information correct or not. Whenever you have to ask for something, it is a part of skepticism, is that whenever you have to ask whether you're questioning someone, there's a way of questioning, correct? You never demand information. Guys, remember in your exam, do not demand information. You request for information, correct? We are working in a corporate. We do not say, you know what, I don't believe your reasons. I demand more explanation behind your reasons. No, you request, like, I would really appreciate it if you could probably elaborate the reasons which I've given a bit more. So that is skepticism. Moving on to analysis. Okay, so yeah, a part of the SBL paper is to analyze the current situation. They'll give you various reports. Remember one thing, analysis basically means logically investigating or to meet a stated objective, okay? And you have to logically investigate when you're making a particular decision, correct? When you're analyzing something, you do not have to only analyze. For example, you have to analyze the current situation. You don't look, you can take the financial reports, okay, correct? And you can probably make a trend analysis compared to last year's, or you can probably solve a few ratios, correct? Then again, analysis, it's, as I mentioned, it's SBL, guys, so it's not restricted to only the financial bit, correct? There are various, so I did the ratio bit, correct? But what about customer feedback, correct? What did I mention about customer feedback over the past few years, about current year, correct? There are various other KPIs by which you can assess a company, correct? Customer feedback. In analysis, another important thing is the look at the industry as a whole. As I mentioned, my company was a civil engineering company. There is a railway company. Let's say You get an example of an automobile company. When you're analyzing your current information, you did your ratio analysis, perfect. You get points for analysis over there. You did check your other KPIs, that was brilliant. You saw your customer feedback. The third one is having a look at is that whether you're with the industry average or not, correct? Even if you're saying that my profits are brilliant, but what if the other competitors are doing much better, the industry average is much better. So it is very important to do analysis on that bit also. So guys, I hope you understood the 5 important verbs which are definitely going to be used. They might twist it a little bit, they twist it very rarely, but sometimes they twist it. They might say critically evaluate. When you say critically evaluate, you don't talk about advantages and disadvantages, you talk only about disadvantages. Okay, it's a very rare case, but it does come up sometimes. So guys, as I mentioned in the start, please focus on the verb. Give the examiner what he wants. It doesn't have to be 5 pages long, it doesn't have to be 2000 words long. I'm telling you, it doesn't matter, because if you're giving him information which he has not asked for, he believes that you have not understood the question. Okay, don't come out of the paper bragging that I wrote 5000 words for one answer. You're not going to get suitable marks for those 5000 words. Okay, so moving on. Okay, before I go into the revision, being revision ready 2 weeks before the exam, I just want to clear a few other points. Allotting time for your SBL paper, okay, is very crucial. Okay, I know it's 4 hours and you know you need to break it down. Okay, there are various strategies which I ask my students to do, and some students are comfortable with different strategies, some students are comfortable with various other strategies. This is a strategy which I feel it works the best because I've taught so many students. When you receive the paper, for the first 15 to 20 minutes, please read through the entire case study. Okay, don't go in depth. Get an understanding of the entire case study, correct? So there are various annexures. They might have 10 annexures. So generally, one question is related to, the first question is related to annexure 1. And they'll specify that in this question, please refer to annexure 1 or annexure 3. Mostly they specify, and even you'll understand that he's talking about this annexure itself. Then, so obviously you might say that then why can't I just look at the question, look at the annexure and solve the sum, solve the question. Remember this, that there is sometimes, okay, you might get all 10 points, you get 9 out of 10 points you get from that particular annexure which you have stated. But 1 point you can relate to another annexure, and they really like the fact that you went out of the annexure, you consider that other point and you wrote it in this answer. Okay, I'm repeating again, they've asked you a specific question which is related to a particular annexure, but there might be 1 point out of 10 points, 1 point which is related to another annexure, but because you have read the entire case study in the first 15 to 20 minutes, you have a general idea what's happening as a whole. Okay, what might happen is that when you start solving the other annexure, you're like, oh my god, I could have written this point over there also. Okay, so first 15 to 20 minutes, just go through the entire paper, read the case study, forget what everyone else is doing, just read it, just glance through it. Okay, make sure you're reading quick, make sure you're reading fast, practice that also. I'm telling you, these things are important. Practice reading fast, it helps you a lot. Then you obviously break it down one question at a time. Question number 1 related to this annexure, and if something strikes you, do it brilliantly. Okay, so first 20 minutes please read, then you can take one question at a time. Marks and time should be also allocated, correct? If you think they've related a question on evaluate the current situation, evaluate this current project, and you get all excited, you know, like, yeah, I have like 500 points for this. But if it's only for 8 marks, you need to understand that I probably have to spend less time on this. What I will do is, suppose I quickly jot down 20 points, but I know it's for 8 marks. I can't waste my time writing those 20 points. So from those points, I start ranking them, that okay, these 5 points, it doesn't mean the first 5 points, the first point, the third point, the fifth point, that 15th point are very important, and I think they have to be there. When you're writing an exam, please always do this. It's a very good system. Rank your answer, rank your points. Your best points have to be first. And it's correct, right? Even when I'm reporting to a manager in a corporate, I always want to specify my strongest points first to create that impression that this is what it is, and then you talk about the other points which are not that crucial probably. So yeah, marks and allocate marks and time proportionately, and try to stick to it. That's where mock exams come. Where you practice a lot. And even if you have said, if you look at 8-mark question, you're like, okay, I'll give X minutes for this 8-mark question. It's very good that you said that I'll give 8 minutes, but it's very important for you to stick to it, correct? So yeah, you can go to 9 or 10 minutes. Sometimes I have done that, but try to stick to it as much as you can. Another bit about SBL, guys, do not waste time explaining theories. Okay, everything has to be related to the case study itself. I will talk about the important topics eventually, but if they have asked for Porter's 5 forces model for the current situation, please do not write what Porter's 5 forces model is. They're not asking for that. Okay, this is not a BCom paper. They want you to use that particular concept to explain the current situation. They know you know Porter's 5 forces model. You do not have to specify what it is. Do not go into the definition. No. Connect Porter's 5 forces model to the current situation and give them the answer. Okay. Yeah. So those are the important, very, very crucial bit which people generally make, the mistakes which they make in SBL. Okay. Now your revision study. Practice only key kit questions such as strategy. I'll give a topic. I'll give them important topics as well, but they like, for example, in strategy also they generally ask specific things, correct? It's important for you to know everything, but please practice questions related to that, because it will help you over there. I know the time is less. I know some of you guys might be working, but please practice 1 paper a day. Okay, remember this one thing, that if you're practicing 3 mock exams for the papers, you have probably practice 9 mock exams for SBL. It is crucial. I'm telling you guys that you guys might be confident that I've written a 3-hour 15-hour paper, and this is 4 hours. So obviously it should be much easier for me to understand. Please don't go with that assumption. It is a very lengthy paper. I'm telling you, the size of the paper is only big. The question paper itself is bigger than your other papers. So please try to practice. And the strategy which I just gave, that the first 20 minutes you should read through. When you try it, you might benefit a lot. Or sometimes you might feel that, no, I'm going wrong. I should probably stick to my answer because I wasted a lot of time. You will only understand whether these various strategies are right or wrong when you start practicing mocks. Correct? You can't give me the assumption that, okay, I'll go and try it in the paper. If you're trying it in the paper, you're going to go, the last thing you want is you have 1 hour left and you have 40 marks to complete. Correct? And your first 60 marks you have done brilliantly in your first 3 hours. But the last 1 hour you have to finish 40 hours. Then it leads to chaos, you'll panic. So please practice mocks. I know you guys must be working, but practice as many mocks as you can. Because as I'm saying, correct, it is not some definite IFRS concept which you have to mug up. Correct? Every strategy, every situation is different. Every industry is different. The fact that you practice so many mocks, no matter which industry they throw at you, you'll be ready for it. Okay. Sticking to the industry point, guys. Generally we say read technical articles which ACCA gives. Read that definitely, but it's very important for you guys to gain knowledge from the outside world also. In my paper, I used an example of a civil engineering company, correct? And I spoke about a little bit of architecture as well, because I knew that knowledge a little bit. But if you guys are lucky to get a company like an automobile company, use examples like Tesla, Mercedes. If you have read a few articles about them in the recent past, I mean, even if it's 1 year old, they're planning, so you can say that this company can plan to do what Tesla did and give the example. Correct? So you're going out of bounds. Don't go too much out of bounds and explain the full Tesla case study, but talk a little bit about it. The examiner loves it. He really loves the fact that you went out of the current case study and try to relate the current case study with something which is happening in the real world. Okay. So that's something. Case studies on YouTube. I used to keep telling my students, that go through case studies like CNBC is a brilliant channel. Why did Starbucks fail in Australia? You learn about strategies, correct? when will Tesla enter India, for instance, correct? Will electronic scooters, Ola scooter which just started, correct, will that basically take, how much market share will that take of your Honda Activa or the various other scooters which are there? You know, so start that. I think it's just general knowledge which you should be, and if you can relate that to something which is in your paper, it's just brilliant. The examiner loves it. Okay, I did say practice 9 mocks, okay, but you need to practice 3 CBE mocks. So it's okay if you're practicing 6 one where you're writing, or you just, but you know, you can try it on the ACCA platform itself where they allow you to practice mocks. So please get used to writing on Word, on Excel. The last thing you want is you've practiced your 9 mocks, but you've done it on paper. But when you go to practice it on your computer, it's a different story, right? Remember, in your paper, so I gave the written exam. So I used to write notes, you know, on a particular point. I used to underline. I should like, okay, annexure 1 can be related to this question. You cannot do that in your CB exams, correct? So you need to adjust to those different variations, especially people who are coming from the CA background and have not written a CB exam. And if SBL or you're new to ACCA, please get used to the computer based exams. I'm telling you, you might lose 15 to 20 minutes figuring out things over there in the paper, and those 15 to 20 marks are so crucial. They can make the difference between you passing and failing, and you do not want to fail a paper because you didn't practice on the computer based exams. Okay. Yeah, technical articles are important, and your models for revision. Okay, 2 weeks before the exam, again, run through the textbook, your study notes. If you have notes, brilliantly. At Zell, we have created our own notes where we have made it a bit more concise, so that students on the last day can also revise it. In the last week, they can revise it. Strategize your kit questions. You know which ones are important, correct? By this time, you should know which ones are important. If you have gone through some questions and you really thought that the case study was a bit difficult, please make sure that you're marking that and revising that again. Your technical articles and your revision model. Okay. Mocks and CV practice. Solve past questions of the on word processor and spreadsheet. That's what I just mentioned. Please stick to that. And then it's easier on the spreadsheet itself and on the word. If you're slow at typing, please work on that also. I'm telling you, the last things you want to fail is that you knew the concept, you knew the strategy, you knew the answer, but because of these small issues, you're going to be failing the exam. Acquaint yourself with the ACCA exam platform. It's a brilliant platform where you can practice your various mocks, and not only for SBL, you can practice for your other papers also. If you're giving SBL and FM, you can practice your FM paper as well. Yeah. Okay, I'll just give you a brief about the key topics which are generally very important based on past papers and nothing else. Starting with corporate governance. So a question generally comes on corporate governance. The agent principle concept is obviously taught in BT. I think it's taught in a few other subjects also, but SBL considers it very important where the agent and principle concept, you have to explain that. When I'm talking about corporate governance, if they give you a list of board of directors, I want you to read the name of each and every board of director. Okay, you might think it's not important. For example, if they have no lady member, correct, or the board of directors has not been split equally, correct, or there are more people from the audit committee and there are less people in the other committee, so obviously it is very important. Moving on, BCG matrix. So the Boston Consultancy Group, the matrix, you must be knowing about your cash cows. So again, do not mug up everything. They're going to ask you that, is X company a cash cow, or where do you see him 3 years down the line? Okay, that's where BCG matrix comes. They're not going to ask you to define BCG matrix. Pestle, Potter's 5 forces. These are, I mean, the most definitely asked questions. This is okay. Now understand this. They're not going to ask you use Pestle analysis. They're not going to ask you to use Potter's 5 forces model. When they use the word analyze the external environment, these two are the best. Now, in the question, you might say, oh, but sir, what should I use? Should I use Pestle or should I use Potter's 5 forces? It depends on the case study itself. You know Pestle, you know Potter's, you know the 5 forces which Potter keeps specifying, correct? What are the Potter's 5 forces model? Or what is Pestle analysis, correct? Let's start. What about Potter's 5 forces model? I had this brilliant case study literally case study in 𝗤𝗻𝗄𝗃, which I did for Porter's 5 forces model. Okay, my head of department asked me that we have to do an analysis of Porter's 5 forces for the current situation in 𝗤𝗻𝗄𝗃. Okay, we start with the bargaining power of the competitors and the customers. Correct? How important it is, how the customers, when 𝗤𝗻𝗄𝗃 was there, Indigo was selling tickets probably 20% lower than what we were selling at, and they were trying to get, they had majority of the market share at that time. They had 40% market share. So obviously, why will someone choose a customer? Why will the customer choose 𝗤𝗻𝗄𝗃? Another thing was, how easy is it for the customer to shift? Correct? If he flew from Mumbai to Delhi via jet, he can easily reject it and come back from Delhi to Mumbai using Indigo. Correct? When I'm talking about bargaining power of your suppliers, at that time in jet we had Airbus, and we had obviously Airbus and Boeing were the biggest competitors. When you have two main competitors for your suppliers, obviously the bargaining power is a little bit higher, obviously, because they're going to be, if Airbus quotes 100 rupees, Boeing is going to come and say 90 rupees. But at the same time, if I'm buying a plane from Airbus, sometimes the spare parts only Airbus can provide. Some of the spare parts only Airbus can provide. So that's very important over there as also. Moving on to competition, we're talking about general competition. Very important point, guys, substitution. So substitute product is not your competitor product, correct? And when I'm talking about substitute for the airlines industry, it is not your railways, it is not your Hyperloop, it is basically your Skype, your Zoom, correct? And you remember meetings used to, initially for meetings people had to fly down, now people are using Zoom. So ticket price, I mean the tickets will, the sale of any airlines have dropped drastically because of these measures. And in COVID, it has become more evident. People are giving corporate meetings. Forget corporate meetings. See, the two reasons we fly is corporate meetings, work, or we can fly for meeting relatives, right? Right now, I can go on WhatsApp, get on a video call with my sister who's staying probably 500 miles away from here by a click of a button, correct? Obviously, I will travel, but if I can do this, so my travel might reduce, correct? So substitute products very important, and obviously threat of new entrants, correct? But in threat of new entrants, you need to understand that in 𝗤𝗻𝗄𝗃, it was like in the airlines industry, it is very difficult for someone to enter, correct? Huge capital investment, huge, correct? Besides that, you do need a political connect as well. So that's what I'm saying, based on the case study, based on the information they've given, you have to decide whether it's going to be 𝗏𝗃 analysis or Porter's 5 forces model. But you should know both of them perfectly. If they've asked external environment, start differentiating. You have to be quick that, okay, 𝗏𝗃, do I get all my 6-7 points from 𝗏𝗃, or am I getting better 5 points from Porter's 5 forces? Based on that, you can make a decision. Yeah, that's, I think, commercial acumen right there, making sound decisions. Okay, now moving on to your SAF model for strategic choice, which is your suitability, accessibility, and feasibility. You can break it down, and even when evaluation, when I said that when you have two decisions to make, you can use whether it's suitable, whether it's acceptable, and whether it's feasible. In the end, when I mentioned whether it's feasible, whether the rent which you're going to pay is feasible or not, correct, compared to work from home. And obviously data analysis, guys. In data analysis, another thing is big data is asked quite a lot. Big data, because it is growing. Big data, data analytics, data science, a little bit of fintech is asked a lot in the papers right now. So getting back to the 𝗏𝗃 and Porter's, when I said that you have to differentiate between 𝗏𝗃 and Porter's 5 forces using the current case study, that's what I'm trying to say, that the 4 hours sometimes are not enough. And it's not like you don't know the answers. You know the answers, but you still want to spend more time to decide whether it should be 𝗏𝗃 or whether it should be Porter's 5 forces. If the question is asked, and then again, you look at the number of marks also, correct? If it's for a 10-mark question, 15-mark question, if they ask you for a 25-mark question, then do both, correct? So those are the decisions which you have to make in SBL in the paper in those 4 hours. Decision making is crucial in terms of time spent, in terms of how much I have to write, whether I'm sticking to my professional skills or not. Those verbs are so crucial. So that's what makes SBL paper so interesting. You feel like you've just graduated from MBA college and they've thrown you to a current case study and you have to solve it. And it just prepares you much better for not only for your job but even for your interview. You know, since you have learned so much, it gives you so much confidence to answer in the interview because you've done so much in the paper itself. You've gone through it, and that's why I'm suggesting practice those mocks so that those 4 hours so that even if you practice 10 mocks, I can't 100% guarantee you that you will nail the paper, but you are so confident in those first 5 to 10 minutes that yeah, I got it now. I'm going to make this strategy. I'm going to read for the next 20 minutes. Then I can take one analysis at a time. I can start. Okay. So please practice the mocks. Practice is very crucial for SBL more than any other paper. Okay. And please don't take it lightly. 4 hours is, I know I'm scaring you guys a lot, but hopefully you all will complete it in 4 hours. So guys, that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed the session. As I mentioned, we will definitely have more sessions for other subjects. We have had a couple of them, we have another session today itself, which is going to go ACCA live for the PM paper. If you really like our content, if you like the demo class which you're doing right now, please like, share, subscribe. And as I mentioned before, please feel free to comment in the comment section any doubts you have related to SBL, or whether it's CMA or CFA, or any video which you have written on. Guys, if you're completing your ACCA, please have a look at the courses of CFA. Understand how we have done a video on how ACCA and CFA can do well together as well. So now I'm going to keep the live session open for question and answers. So probably we can just go through the questions.
So sir, an Instagram poll that we had conducted, a few questions were asked for SBL. The first question was, what should I do if SBL is my first P-level paper? Should I do anything different?
Okay, so the first question is that if SBL is your first paper, should I do something different? A lot of people coming from the CA background who probably never written an ACCA paper, that's a separate thing. And probably if you've finished your F1 to F9 and you're giving your first professional paper, understand that till F9 there was no professional marks, correct? And there was no professional marks. Generally papers have 4 marks professional marks, but in SBL it's an 80-mark paper and 20-mark professional skills. So those are very important, which I just explained. If you've missed it out, it's probably in the first 15 to 20 minutes of my session. Secondly, guys, F1 to F9 was always split, subjective, objective. You had MCQs. Here there are 0 MCQs. And thirdly, if I'm talking about, if you've already given a couple of P-level papers, remember there are 2 to 3 case studies. It's 50-mark paper, 50-mark question, 25-mark question, 25-mark question. But in SBL, it is only 1 case study which you're revolving around. Yeah. So moving on to the second question.
Sir, are SBL and APM related?
Yeah, so are SBL and APM related? Okay, and a lot of people have a look at the textbook, they have a look at the notes, and they might think that SBL and APM are almost the same, because the topics such as Potter's 5 forces, your pest analysis, your suitability, accessibility and feasibility concept are all in the APM notes also, in the APM textbook also. But the difference between SBL and APM is vast. Okay, if you prepare for an SBL paper and go for an APM paper, you might mess it up a lot. So in SBL, for instance, sometimes they give you KPIs or they give you financial analysis and they ask you to analyze the current situation. But in APM, they're asking that are the KPIs which are used, are those correct or not, or should we use different KPIs, correct? As I said that, customer survey is very important in an analysis. But the question is customer survey the best solution, or can I do something better than customer analysis? Probably competitors report might be better, correct? So that's what APM talks about. It talks about, it's not about analyzing the current situation, but are we getting the right data? Are we following the proper process to get the data? And can there be a better way for me to make decisions? Yeah.
So Mehul is asking us, can you please tell what should be my study technique in SBL as the course is so vast? Shall I learn the topics or shall I just give the topics a read?
Okay, so you need to understand the concept. So do not learn the topics. Okay, for example, in your BCom paper, they always ask you that please define pest analysis, and you have to write each and every point, political, economic, and but in the SBL paper, they're not going to ask you about pest analysis. They're just going to ask you using pest analysis to explain the current concept. So you should read through it, not learn it. But if you're reading through it, just make sure you know every point, correct? That you should know what political means, you should know what economic means, so that you can write the answer successfully. So read through it thoroughly. If you're asking how you should prepare for SBL, if you have notes or you're seeing the BPP or Kaplan, make sure that you know every concept. Okay, you have to know every concept, and then you have to just implement that concept in the paper. But please do not mug up any definition. Do not waste time even defining theories in the paper, as I mentioned before.
The next question we have is, what should I do one day before my SBL exam?
Okay, so I'm assuming that you will be prepared one day before the SBL exam. Do not study a lot. Just revise. Just go through your notes once. I would advise you to write a mock exam one day before. It does get tiring writing that mock exam also. I would honestly suggest take the day off. Just keep a calm mind. Read through a few articles if you can, and yeah, get ready for war the next day. So I think that's about it for the comments, for the question and answers. Guys, if you have any doubts not related to ACCA, related to CFA, or if your CFA paper is coming up, you want any doubts, we're going to keep a live session for that as well. Feel free to comment in this video if you're watching it later on, and we will be answering it very soon. Thanks a lot, guys.